It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a coworker. It wasn't someone far from your life. It was your brother, your sister, the one who once shared a bedroom with you, shared birthday cakes, shared secrets, shared the same grief when your parents fought or when life felt too heavy. And now, they act like none of that matters. They talk behind your back. They twist your words. They betray your trust, not once, but over and over again. And everyone tells you, but they're family. You have to forgive them. But what if you don't? What if choosing not to forgive is the very thing that finally sets you free? This isn't about revenge. This isn't about bitterness. This is about dignity. This is about boundaries. This is about healing in a way that no longer makes you bleed. In today's episode, we'll explore a painful truth that many live with, but few talk about. The betrayals you should never forgive, especially when they come from your own siblings. And we'll do it through the lens of timeless Stoic wisdom, because in a world full of chaos, nothing gives more peace than knowing what you can control and what you must let go. Family is supposed to be a source of safety, a place you run to, not run from. But for many, the word family carries more pain than comfort, especially when the betrayal comes from a sibling, someone who was supposed to be on your side. We're often told to let it go, to be a bigger person, to forgive and forget because life is short and blood is thicker than water. But here's the Stoic truth: not all forgiveness leads to peace. Sometimes it only leads to more betrayal. The ancient Stoics, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, they never said to accept harm just because it comes from someone close. Instead, they taught us to protect our peace fiercely, to honor our reason, and to walk away when our soul is at stake. In this video, we'll unpack why sibling betrayal feels so uniquely painful, what Stoic philosophy says about forgiving or not forgiving those who repeatedly violate your trust, and how you can rebuild your life with quiet strength, clarity, and emotional freedom. Because you deserve more than just survival. You deserve to feel strong, centered, and at peace with yourself, no matter who let you down. If you're someone who's ready to stop the bleeding, reclaim your inner calm, and live with more purpose and strength, then take a moment to subscribe to the Stoic philosophy. We create content rooted in ancient wisdom, crafted to help you handle life's toughest moments with grace, courage, and truth. Each week, we dive deep into Stoicism, not just as theory, but as a way to actually live, clearer, calmer, wiser. So if you've ever been hurt by family, if you're tired of pretending everything's okay, if you crave peace that doesn't depend on anyone else, you're in the right place. And this is the video for you. What do you do when the person who hurts you most is the one who knows you best? When betrayal comes from a sibling, it doesn't just cut, it shatters. It breaks something deeper than trust. It breaks your shared history. It makes you question your past, your memories, even your sense of self. We grow up thinking, they're my brother, my sister, we'll always have each other. We assume there's a built-in loyalty that will never disappear. But sometimes what disappears is their kindness, their empathy, their respect. And suddenly, you find yourself on the receiving end of things you never imagined. A harsh word spoken behind your back. A family secret exposed for attention. Manipulation disguised as concern. Passive-aggressive guilt trips. Jealousy wrapped in shallow smiles. Silence when you needed support the most. The problem isn't just what they did. The problem is how everyone else reacts. Your parents say, just get along. Your friends don't understand, saying, but that's your family. Society whispers, you only get one family. Don't throw it away. And so, you stay quiet. You bottle the pain. You try again and again to make peace, even when you're the only one fighting for it. But here's the hard truth. Some siblings don't want peace. They want power. They want the upper hand. And they know exactly which buttons to press because they installed them in the first place. Now, you're stuck in an emotional maze. If you speak up, you're accused of being dramatic. If you distance yourself, you're called cold. If you forgive too soon, the cycle repeats. And if you don't forgive at all, you're painted as the villain. This is the silent torment many people carry deep into adulthood. It's not loud, it's not public, it's the kind of pain that wakes you up at night. That makes holidays feel heavy. That makes you dread phone calls instead of welcoming them. But the Stoics offer a different way forward. They don't tell us to forget or to pretend. They tell us to see things clearly, to stop lying to ourselves in the name of tradition. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, if someone does wrong, it is their problem, not yours. Your only task is to respond with reason. But reason is hard to hold on to when your heart is bleeding. That's the challenge. We are told forgiveness is always the high road. But sometimes forgiveness is a form of self-abandonment. When you forgive someone who isn't sorry, when you allow them back into your life without consequence, you're not being noble, you're being unsafe. And yet, the pressure to forgive is enormous, especially for older adults. You think, we're getting older, we may not have much time left. But what if the time you do have deserves to be peaceful? What if the years ahead deserve to be free of drama, guilt, and old wounds? That's the true challenge, not just deciding whether to forgive, but deciding what kind of life you want to live from this point forward. Will you keep trying to fix what keeps breaking you, or will you choose the Stoic path, the path of strength, clarity, and emotional independence? This video is not about encouraging hate or cutting people off out of anger. It's about truth. And sometimes the truth is this: forgiveness without change is just permission for more betrayal. And no matter who they are, sibling or stranger, your peace is not a debt you owe. Exploration through the Stoic lens, understanding the deeper wounds of sibling betrayal. Not all betrayals are created equal. When a friend deceives you, it stings. When a partner cheats, it crushes. But when your own sibling betrays you, it rearranges you. This isn't just emotional pain, it's an existential disruption. You begin to doubt not just your relationship with them, but your place in your family, your childhood memories, and even your identity. Why? Because you expected the world to hurt you, but you never expected this. And yet, what makes sibling betrayal even more insidious is how it hides behind the veil of family loyalty. We're told to tolerate it, to excuse it, to carry the burden quietly for the sake of appearances or aging parents or keeping the family together. But that's not what Stoicism teaches. The Stoics never said, let people walk over you in the name of virtue. They taught us to see clearly, to act justly, and to live according to reason, not guilt, not obligation. In this next section, we'll break down the anatomy of sibling betrayal through the Stoic lens. 5 parts, 5 emotional turning points, each one designed to help you understand, confront, and transcend the pain, not just so you can move on, but so you can move upward. Part 1. When blood turns cold, the anatomy of betrayal. There's a certain kind of silence that follows betrayal, not the silence of peace, but the heavy, paralyzing quiet that comes when someone you thought would protect you breaks you instead. When it's your sibling, it's more than just betrayal. It's a collapse of memory, because the person who hurt you is not some outsider. They're in your family photos. They were there at your graduation. They held your hand at your parents' funeral. And that's exactly what makes it so confusing, so disorienting, so hard to even talk about. The roots of sibling dynamics. To understand sibling betrayal, we have to go back to the roles we were cast into, not by choice, but by circumstance. Maybe you were the responsible one, the fixer. They were the rebel, always forgiven. Maybe you were the quiet one. They were the loud one, the favorite, the protector, or the bully. The Stoics remind us that we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So if your sibling hurt you as a child, you might still be carrying that story, but now you're 50, they're 55, and the wound never really healed. It just matured into silence, distance, bitterness with a polite smile. The betrayal behind the mask. Not all betrayals look dramatic. They don't always involve yelling or physical harm. Sometimes betrayal is subtle. It's in the way they minimize your pain. It's how they roll their eyes when you speak. It's the jokes they make about you in front of others, disguised as just teasing. The Stoics would ask, is it virtuous? Is it just? Is it kind? And when you hold your sibling's behavior to that standard, the answer often becomes clear. No, it's not just. It's not kind. It's not what love looks like. Why it hurts? So much more psychologically, betrayal by a sibling is uniquely painful because of shared identity. You grew up in the same house, ate at the same table, felt the same fear when your father raised his voice, knew the same joy when your mother danced in the kitchen. When they betray you, they aren't just hurting your present, they're corrupting your past. They're taking something sacred and turning it into something suspicious. You start wondering, were we ever close? Did they ever care? Was all of it fake? And this leads to something even more dangerous, self-doubt. The Stoics warned us about this, how we internalize the wrongs of others. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But when the betrayal is wrapped in family ties, reacting wisely becomes harder, because walking away from a sibling feels like tearing a page out of your own book. The social weight of family loyalty. In modern culture, especially in older generations, we are conditioned to believe that family is everything. That blood is thicker than water. That loyalty must be unconditional. But the Stoics challenge that. They remind us that virtue is thicker than blood, that character matters more than kinship, that we owe loyalty not to someone's DNA, but to their decency. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. That means not lowering yourself to their level, but it also means not pretending that wrong is right, just because you're related. Recognizing the pattern. Before you can heal, you must first recognize. Start by asking yourself, do I always feel anxious around this sibling? Do I leave conversations feeling small, guilty, or unseen? Do they take advantage of our shared history to manipulate or shame me? Have I forgiven them more times than I can count, only to be hurt again? If so, you're not being sensitive, you're seeing clearly. And clarity is the first step toward liberation. From judgment to wisdom, Stoicism doesn't give you permission to hate. It doesn't tell you to seek revenge. What it gives you is the power to see things as they are and to respond with reason. A Stoic doesn't ignore betrayal. They investigate it, they name it. They choose the path of integrity, even if that means walking it alone. And in the case of sibling betrayal, walking alone might just be your salvation, because not everyone who shares your past deserves a place in your future. Part 2. The Invisible Knife, How Emotional Betrayal Destroys Trust. When we think of betrayal, we often picture dramatic moments, heated arguments, shouting, broken promises. But betrayal doesn't always show itself in the loud, messy ways we expect. Sometimes it cuts quietly. It comes in the form of emotional betrayal, and its wounds are invisible, yet they run deep, leaving lasting scars on the soul. With a sibling, emotional betrayal feels like a silent blade twisting in your gut. It's not about what's been done, it's about what's been withheld. The words they didn't say, the support they never offered, the trust they silently chipped away at, until all that's left is the hollow echo of their absence. The nature of emotional betrayal. Emotional betrayal is often harder to pinpoint than other forms of harm because it leaves no physical evidence. There's no bruising, no broken glass, just the slow, insidious erosion of your emotional well-being. Think about the times when your sibling has made you feel small or unimportant, not with blatant insults, but with subtle jabs, cutting remarks disguised as jokes, or silence when you needed them most. These moments are like small cuts, seemingly harmless, but over time, they add up, and the accumulation of hurt can feel unbearable. Seneca once said, "A friend is someone who shares in your joy, your sorrow, and your pain." But what happens when your sibling, the person who should have been your closest ally, becomes the one who betrays that trust? When the person you turn to for comfort is instead the one who brings you discomfort. Emotional betrayal isn't about what's obvious, it's about what's missing. It's the absence of empathy, the neglect of your needs, the inability to recognize your pain. It's how they know you need support but don't give it. It's the refusal to acknowledge your hurt even though they are aware of it. The lingering impact of unspoken harm. One of the most damaging aspects of emotional betrayal is its long-lasting effect. When your sibling betrays you emotionally, it doesn't just hurt in the moment, it lingers, shaping your future interactions and your trust in others. You begin to wonder, if they couldn't be there for me when I needed them most, who will? The damage isn't always visible, but it's real. Trust, once broken, is incredibly difficult to rebuild. Every conversation with your sibling becomes a minefield. You find yourself questioning their every word, their every action, because you know the depth of their betrayal. And that's the key difference. Emotional betrayal doesn't just affect your relationship with your sibling, it affects your trust in everyone. It erodes your ability to believe that anyone, even those closest to you, will truly have your back when the chips are down. Why it's harder to let go of emotional betrayal. What makes emotional betrayal so difficult to overcome is that it's personal. It's not just a broken promise, it's a broken bond. It's not just an insult, it's the dismissal of your very self. When someone betrays you emotionally, it's not just a single action, it's a reflection of how they value you. Or more accurately, how they don't. It challenges your identity, your sense of worth, and the place you thought you held in their life. A Stoic would remind us that our happiness and self-worth cannot depend on the behavior of others. But in moments of deep emotional betrayal, this lesson is harder to swallow. We want to believe that the people we love will be there for us, especially in our darkest hours. When they're not, it can feel like a fundamental betrayal of everything you thought you knew about love and loyalty. The Stoic response: clarity, not emotion. The Stoics understood the pain of betrayal, but they also understood that emotion, particularly unchecked emotional reaction, only makes things worse. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, taught that the events that happen to us are not inherently good or bad. It's our response to them that shapes our experience. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Emotional betrayal can overwhelm us. It can leave us angry, hurt, and confused. But the Stoic response is not to react to the betrayal. The Stoic response is to pause, step back, and clarify our own emotions. To say, what is in my control here? What is outside my control? You cannot control your siblings' actions. You cannot force them to treat you with the love and respect you deserve. But you can control how you react. You can control whether you choose to let this betrayal define you, or whether you choose to rise above it, setting boundaries and moving on. One of the most powerful lessons Stoicism offers in response to emotional betrayal is the concept of boundaries. Setting boundaries doesn't mean shutting someone out entirely. It doesn't mean holding on to bitterness. It simply means recognizing that your emotional well-being is not their responsibility, and that they no longer have free access to your heart and mind. When a sibling betrays you emotionally, you are faced with a choice. Do you continue to allow them to hurt you, or do you take back control and create space for healing? This is where the Stoic wisdom of apatheia, a calm and reasoned approach to life's ups and downs, becomes critical. Apatheia doesn't mean detaching from your emotions entirely. It means being in control of them. It's about not allowing others' actions to disturb your inner peace. Rebuilding trust, one step at a time. The damage caused by emotional betrayal may never be fully healed, but the Stoic approach teaches us to rebuild slowly, to trust our judgment, and to give ourselves permission to grow beyond betrayal. By setting healthy boundaries, communicating honestly, and keeping our emotional peace intact, we can begin to trust again, not in our sibling necessarily, but in ourselves. The Stoic path is about reclaiming power over our own lives and not allowing the actions of others to destroy our inner peace. Part the third, the myth of unconditional forgiveness. Why letting go isn't always the answer. They tell you forgiveness is noble. They tell you it will set you free, that to carry pain is to poison yourself, and the antidote is always forgiveness. But what if that's not always true? What if forgiveness, when handed out too quickly, becomes a form of self-betrayal? What if letting go is just another way of saying letting them do it again? The social pressure to forgive. Especially in families, the pressure to forgive is enormous. You're told, they're your sibling. Blood is thicker than water. Don't hold a grudge, be the bigger person. What if something happens to them tomorrow? And so, even after they've lied about you, even after they've humiliated you, ignored your pain, or used your love against you, you're still made to feel guilty for hesitating to forgive. But here's a hard truth. Unconditional forgiveness is not always healing. Sometimes it's enabling. The Stoics didn't believe in passive tolerance. They believed in justice, in self-respect, in right action based on reason, not guilt. Seneca wrote, "He who forgives easily invites offense." Forgiveness in Stoicism is not a free pass. It's a process rooted in clarity, not emotion. It's earned, not demanded. Why we forgive too soon. Many people forgive not because they've healed, but because they're afraid. Afraid of confrontation, afraid of being judged by others, afraid of being seen as cold or unloving. But forgiveness without accountability is not compassion, it's surrender. And Stoicism teaches us never to surrender our dignity, especially under emotional pressure. When you forgive someone who has shown no remorse, no effort to change, and no understanding of the pain they've caused, you're not offering them grace. You're offering them permission to hurt you again. Forgiveness should not be a reflex. It should be a decision based on whether the other person deserves another place in your life. What the Stoics actually said about forgiveness. Contrary to popular belief, Stoicism doesn't require us to be endlessly tolerant. It teaches us to be virtuous, but never to be victims. Epictetus wrote, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish, but wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well." This is a call for acceptance of reality, not an excuse for passivity. If your sibling has harmed you repeatedly, their behavior is not just a fluke, it is a pattern. And Stoics observe patterns with reason, not denial. Marcus Aurelius encouraged us to act according to nature, and nature teaches boundaries. Even trees, as close as they grow together, give each other room to breathe. You can let go of anger without handing someone the keys to your heart again. You can move forward without reopening the door. Forgiveness versus closure, not the same. Many people confuse forgiveness with closure, but they're not the same. Forgiveness is an internal shift. You choose to release the burden of resentment. Closure, however, often requires mutual understanding, accountability, or even honest conversation. Sometimes you'll never get that. Sometimes the person who hurt you will never own up, never apologize, never see the pain they caused. And here's where Stoicism offers freedom. You don't need their apology to reclaim your peace, but you also don't need to offer forgiveness like a reward for their bad behavior. You're allowed to say, "I don't hate you, but I can't trust you. I wish you well, but from a distance. I've let go of the anger, but I've also let go of the relationship." That's not bitterness, that's wisdom. The role of time and distance. In the Stoic tradition, space and silence are powerful tools. Not everything needs a response. Not everything must be resolved. When a sibling has hurt you deeply, time can reveal the truth. Do they reflect on their actions? Do they try to rebuild the bridge? Do they show up with humility, not excuses? If so, maybe forgiveness becomes possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. If not, then you've already seen who they truly are, and you are allowed to choose distance as a form of peace. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is remembering clearly and choosing not to let their shadow darken your future. You are not cold, you are conscious. Choosing not to forgive isn't the same as being vindictive. It means you've taken stock of your life, your values, your peace, and you've made a rational decision to protect them. The Stoics never said that all people deserve equal treatment. They said, treat people justly, but understand what justice means. Justice doesn't mean giving endless chances. It means responding with balance. And sometimes balance means letting someone go without anger, but with finality. You are not hard-hearted for refusing to pretend that everything is okay. You are not cold for protecting yourself from repeated harm. You are not broken, you are becoming whole. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to end the cycle. Part 4. The Ripple Effect. How one betrayal echoes across generations. There's a silence that lingers after betrayal, not just in the hearts of those directly hurt, but in the homes, holidays, and even the habits of those who come after. Many believe betrayal is a private wound, sealed between two people. But that is a myth. In truth, betrayal between siblings, when ignored, denied, or superficially forgiven, doesn't stay buried. It bleeds into the next generation, forming patterns that poison family trees. The story that repeats itself. Let's begin with a quiet, ordinary moment. A grandfather is telling his grandson a story about how he and his brother stopped speaking decades ago over a business deal gone wrong. The story ends not with reconciliation, but with a shrug. "That's just how things were," he says. But to the grandson, something sinks in. He learns without being taught directly that deep wounds should be swallowed, that trust is dangerous, that family is not always safe, and maybe one day he too will mirror this silence when he's wronged. Thus, the cycle continues. Stoicism teaches us to examine what is within our control, and family patterns, while seemingly out of reach, begin with our own awareness. When wounds become inheritance. A betrayal unspoken is not forgotten. It becomes a legacy. Children grow up witnessing tension between siblings. They see unreturned calls, unspoken holidays, estranged uncles. They ask questions, and when no answers are given, they create their own. Often these are worse than the truth. When you don't address betrayal head-on, you don't just risk your own peace. You shape how your children will deal with hurt. You teach, by example, whether integrity matters, whether trust can be rebuilt, whether silence is strength or fear in disguise. The Stoics understood this generational imprint. Seneca once wrote, "No man was ever wise by chance." Wisdom is taught often by how we respond to pain, especially within families. Resentment rewritten into identity. Over time, betrayal solidifies into resentment. But worse, it becomes identity. I'm the one they left out. I'm the brother who was always undermined. I'm the sister who could never trust anyone again. These become life stories repeated over decades. They infect relationships, decision-making, even career paths. They distort how we view others. And tragically, they convince us that emotional survival requires distance, defensiveness, or dominance. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If betrayal dominates your thoughts, it will color your soul. And that soul shapes how your children, spouse, or community experience you. The emotional inheritance becomes unavoidable." The courage to break the pattern. Here's the hard truth. It takes extraordinary courage to confront a betrayal from a sibling, not with rage, but with clarity. The courage to name the wound. The strength to say, "This matters more than you think." The resolve to not pass on your pain in silence. This is where Stoicism shines. It does not demand we forgive unconditionally, nor does it suggest vengeance. Instead, it calls for self-mastery, a moment where you decide that your future and your family's future will not be dictated by old pain. Remember Epictetus's wisdom. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Reacting with stillness, not silence. With dignity, not denial. With the long view in mind, for those who will follow. Building a new legacy. Betrayal, when faced honestly, can become a turning point. A moment that redefines how generations communicate, respect, and repair. What if your act of truth, your refusal to ignore betrayal, teaches your children how to stand up for themselves with grace? What if it becomes the reason they never fear emotional honesty? What if your choice not to just let it go breaks a chain of inherited silence? One choice, one truth, one refusal to accept disrespect. That's all it takes to stop the echo and build a legacy of strength, not shame. Part Phi, when distance is wisdom, drawing boundaries without bitterness. There comes a time when silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. When the pain of betrayal by a sibling no longer fuels anger but simply reveals truth. The truth that some bonds, no matter how deep their roots in childhood, no longer serve your growth or your peace. In these moments, the strongest decision isn't confrontation, it's distance. But there's a quiet fear that haunts those who choose distance. What if this makes me cold? What if I'm being selfish? What if I'm the problem now? This fear keeps many people, especially those raised to believe family is everything, chained to unhealthy connections. But Stoicism offers another lens. Boundaries are not punishment. They're self-respect made visible. When forgiveness becomes enabling. Let's be honest, some betrayals are not accidental. They're repeated, calculated, dismissed when called out. You've explained your hurt. You've tried to rebuild trust. You've even second-guessed your own pain just to keep the peace, but nothing changes. At that point, forgiveness without change becomes enabling, and enabling breeds resentment, not virtue. The Stoics never advocated for martyrdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy," which means you do not have to match cruelty with cruelty. But you also don't have to remain accessible to it. Choosing distance isn't revenge. It's simply saying, "I deserve peace." Stillness is not silence. Drawing boundaries doesn't mean disappearing. It means disengaging with intention. You no longer participate in toxic patterns. You stop responding to bait. You stop waiting for the apology that will never come. Instead, you focus inward, on healing, on rebuilding your values, on surrounding yourself with those who pour into you, not drain you. As Epictetus taught, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. Distance is a form of that freedom, a boundary drawn not in bitterness, but in clarity. Love at a distance. It may sound strange, but you can still love someone from afar. Love doesn't mean access. It doesn't mean tolerating emotional harm for the sake of appearances. It means wishing the best for them, without allowing them to dismantle your boundaries in the process. You can love your brother, your sister, even your parent, and still decline the next invitation, and still stop answering manipulative texts, and still live your life with dignity, knowing you've done what you could. In fact, sometimes distance is the only way to preserve whatever love remains. When others don't understand, here's what no one tells you. Not everyone will understand your boundary. Relatives will question you. Friends may judge. You two used to be so close. It's been years. Why can't you let it go? Family fights, but family forgives. But they weren't there in the quiet betrayals, the subtle undermining, the years of emotional imbalance. You were. Stoicism reminds us, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. You don't owe anyone a detailed justification. Your truth is your own. You honor it not by defending it to others, but by living it calmly, consistently, and with grace. Peace is the goal, not payback. In the end, distance is not a wall. It's a threshold between who you were when you tolerated the betrayal and who you become when you choose peace. You are not bitter. You are not weak. You are not cold. You are wise enough to know that forgiveness doesn't always mean reunion. You are strong enough to set limits, even when it's hard. And you are compassionate enough to walk away without hate. This is not the ending you hoped for, but it is an ending you can live with and even grow from. As Seneca wisely put it, he who is brave is free. And now you are free. The breaking point that made you whole. There's a moment in every journey through betrayal when something inside you finally and irreversibly shifts. It's not dramatic. There are no loud confrontations, no slammed doors or final texts. It happens in stillness. Maybe you're washing dishes or sitting alone on a quiet morning, coffee in hand, and suddenly you feel it. I'm done. Not out of anger, not because you want revenge, but because you're exhausted, because you've run every emotional marathon, and because you now understand something powerful. You don't need their apology to be free. That's the breaking point that makes you whole. The inner collapse. Before the rise, before this moment comes, you've likely been through it all. Denial, guilt, second chances, and self-blame. You questioned your role. You softened your boundaries. You even tolerated things that chipped away at your dignity. But the betrayal wasn't just a moment. It was a pattern, a slow erosion. And eventually, the cost of staying silent became higher than the fear of walking away. The Stoics teach us that peace isn't the absence of chaos. It's the decision not to engage with it anymore. And so you stop. You stop explaining. You stop justifying your hurt. You stop waiting for them to change. The birth of a new self. In this moment, this breaking point, you're not just cutting ties. You're cutting expectations. You're letting go of the fantasy that family always means safety. You're grieving the sibling who existed in your memory, not the one who stands before you now, and you start something else. You begin becoming someone new, someone who knows their worth, someone who protects their peace like sacred ground, someone who no longer tolerates proximity as a substitute for love. This is not bitterness, this is birth. From chaos to clarity. After the decision comes clarity. Your sleep returns, your breath deepens. You find moments of unexpected joy, not because life is easier now, but because it's cleaner, simpler, more honest. You no longer wait for the next emotional ambush. You no longer rehearse conversations that never happen. You no longer shrink to make peace. That's the hidden gift of betrayal. It forces you to shed illusions about others and about yourself. This is what healing looks like. Healing doesn't always look like hugs and reconciliations. Sometimes healing is quiet. It's choosing peace over performance, silence over explanation, distance over dysfunction. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. You've realized it, and that strength is now yours to keep. So when you look back on the moment everything broke, don't mourn, don't regret, because that was the moment you became whole again. The quiet after the storm, what you carry forward. Now you know. You've seen how betrayal, especially from those closest to you, doesn't just hurt, it reshapes you. But here's the truth, that reshaping is not your ruin, it's your refinement. You've walked through the fire of emotional collapse. You've faced the pain of disillusionment. You've had to redraw the meaning of family, not through nostalgia, but through lived experience. And somehow, through it all, you didn't lose yourself. You found a stronger version of you, a more peaceful, alert, and centered self. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about boundaries. It's about choosing peace over pain, truth over comfort, and healing over history. The Stoics never promised life would be free from heartbreak, but they offered us something deeper, the ability to master ourselves, even in the middle of chaos. You are now that kind of person. You no longer seek closure from people who cannot give it. You no longer confuse silence with weakness or distance with cruelty. You've reclaimed your energy, your clarity, your worth. And while some doors have quietly closed, you've just opened the one that matters most, the one that leads back to yourself. Your journey isn't over, it's just beginning. If this message resonated with you, if it spoke to the part of your heart that's been bruised, silenced, or slowly healing, then don't stop here. There's more waiting for you on this path. On the Stoic Philosophy channel, we explore the quiet wisdom of ancient minds and how it speaks to our modern lives, especially in the places that hurt the most. Maybe you're still carrying the weight of family betrayal. Maybe you're learning how to let go, how to rebuild trust, or how to stand alone without feeling lonely. We invite you to keep going. Watch our other videos. Each one is crafted to bring you practical tools, emotional strength, and the peace of knowing that you are not alone in your journey. And if you haven't already, subscribe to The Stoic Philosophy. By subscribing, you won't miss the next story, the next lesson, or the next moment that might change the way you see everything. Thank you for sharing your time, your heart, and your presence with us. We know your attention is sacred, and we don't take it for granted. Wherever you are in life right now, we send you peace, clarity, and the quiet confidence to keep walking forward with dignity, with purpose, and with calm. Until next time, stay strong, stay still, stay you.
Thank you for watching this video here on the Stoic Philosophy. If you found value in this, I invite you to explore more videos on the channel. There's so much more wisdom to uncover. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.